Hey folks, welcome back. It's Getaway Day, Friday, January 9th, 2026. Born on this date in 1934, Pro Football Hall of Fame quarterback Bart Starr of Montgomery. And in 1943, musician Jerry Yester of Birmingham. With the legislative session cranking up next week, we have AL.com Capitol reporter Mike Kaysen on today to give us a sneak peek. First, we have news items on a Trump proclamation that could affect a Birmingham plant, the original Foosackleys, the passing of a former state lawmaker, and where salamander love is stopping traffic. If Tony can sing about muskrat love, we can talk about salamander love. I'm Mike Morgan, and we're down in Alabama. A local environmental group has joined other plaintiffs in filing a lawsuit in D.C. District Court to reinstate air pollution regulations that President Trump postponed in November by issuing a proclamation, reports AL.com's Margaret Cates. The local group is the Greater Birmingham Alliance to Stop Pollution, or GASP. The new regulations put into place in summer 2024 by the EPA would affect ABC Coke in Tarrant. Now, that company, ABC Coke, is operated by the Drummond Company, which did not comment for Margaret's story. Now, ABC Coke turns coal into Coke fuel in its Coke ovens. The Coke is then used to make steel. The EPA has determined that the process releases benzene, mercury, lead, and arsenic. Now, the lawsuit argues that those emissions are known to cause cancer. It names Trump, the EPA, and the EPA administrator as defendants and claims that the president does not have the authority to issue the proclamation, which postpones the changes for 2 years. The administration contends that technology required to meet the new standards is not practically available. The language in the proclamation leans into the role of steel production in national defense. South Alabama chicken finger juggernaut Foosackleys is closing its original location, reports AL.com's Lawrence Specker. Since coming on the scene in April 2000 in a shopping center on South University Boulevard in Mobile, the chain has grown to 16 stores in southwestern Alabama, Pensacola, Tuscaloosa, and Auburn. The original restaurant was a bit on the small side. Now, Foosackleys won't be short a location for very long. The original location closes on January 10th, and then the Foosackleys people will open a brand new one January 12th on Airport Boulevard. A longtime state lawmaker from Huntsville has passed away, reports AL.com's Patrick Darrington. Howard Sanderford was a Republican who represented District 20 in the State House of Representatives for 33 years. Former Governor Bob Riley also appointed him to the board of the U.S. Space and Rocket Center. Now, when he retired in 2022, he said he knew he was leaving the legislature knowing that Alabama was a better place than it had been before his tenure began. Howard Sanderford was 90 years old. And it's mating season for spotted salamanders. Now, I realize that doesn't affect everybody equally. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of folks probably don't even casually keep up with the mating habits of spotted salamanders, although I'm sure they'll all be at this year's Salamander Festival in Homewood. I mean, what else are they going to do from 1 to 4:30 p.m. on January 31st? But for folks who plan to drive near Homewood High School today and tonight, the mating habits of the spotted salamander could make an impact. There's liable to be a lot of traffic, too, because of a basketball game at the school. AL.com's Elena Bookman reports that South Lakeshore Drive near the high school will be closed today and overnight to give the little amphibians a chance to cross the road to mate. See, now that's a much better reason than the chicken ever had. We're going to take a quick break, come back, talk about the Alabama Legislative Session 26. Y'all stay with us. Hey, thanks for staying with us, everybody. Coming up in what? Saturday, Sunday, Monday. In 4 days from when this is publishing, we're going to start one of our favorite seasons of the year, the Alabama legislative session season. So it's a great time to have Mike Kaysen back on. He's AL.com's Capitol reporter, and we love having him. He was nice enough to come back and do this, even with a whole lot of work, staring him down. He's like he's looking down a double barrel gun right now. Mike, how are you doing?
Great. Thank you for having me, Ike. I appreciate the interest in this.
Yeah, there's always a lot of interest in this. Now, what I wanted to talk about with you was a little bit about what we might expect from this legislative session. Do we have priorities from the governor yet, or is this something that we'll find out on Tuesday when she does her State of the State speech?
We'll find those out Tuesday. She hasn't, as far as I know, she hasn't tipped her hand about that. I'm not expecting anything surprising, but I guess it wouldn't be a surprise if I was expecting it. But
Right.
uh, her themes have been improving education during administration, and there's been some progress in that, and workforce development, or creating jobs, and I'm sure that'll be part of it. Um, so we'll just see. We'll see what
Yeah.
she has. It'll be her last. It'll be her last year, and not full year in office. So
Yeah,
we'll
but
see.
before we get into the particulars of this session, I want to talk for just a moment on that. I think we're already well into her being the longest consecutively. I'm saying this poorly, but she's her term, with consecutive years longer than anyone else. I know that Wallace served and then left and came back, but
Right,
Ivy has him on consecutive years, right?
right. Yeah, because she's been governor since April 2017, so it'll be 9 years. It's just 3 months shy of 9 years now, and so
Mhm.
when she leaves office, it'll be just 3 months shy of 10 years. Yeah, that's the longest ever. Already the longest ever, as you said.
Yeah, I'm doing this off the top of my head, part of this may be just perception, but it seems like she's gotten most of her big priorities done to some degree, except maybe I think last year or the year before, she did say, "Hey, we need to go ahead and get a vote on the lottery," and that didn't come to fruition. But that's a long ask in this state. Has there been anything else you remember that she's missed, or she's pretty much hit on a lot of her priorities, hasn't she?
She has hit on a lot of her priorities. She one of the first was passing the gas tax increase,
Yeah.
which was a big heavy lift, but she got that through. That was in 2019, I think, and she's got the prison
That's
construction
right.
underway, um, which the state had not built prison since the mid 90s. So that was something. Although it's controversial,
Hmm.
uh, it's something that it's hard to argue that the state didn't really need that. Although they're very expensive.
Right.
Uh, and then the education improvements that she's emphasizing, that the legislature has been her partner with her on that, and the test scores in reading and math on the
Hmm.
national standards have really gone up a lot.
Hmm. Mhm. Yeah, and year before last, the school choice bill, which everyone still debates those every time they come up. It has seemed to go over at least much better than the previous big package of like 10 years ago when they did the. Um,
Accountability Act, yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
right.
That would be another one of her, I think, her signature achievements, or what she would point to. in conjunction with the legislature, because they had a big role in that, of course. Uh,
And she seems to have stayed pretty popular. Do you get any sense? I mean, I know that governors and presidents are different things, especially when you have a supermajority, as the Republicans do in Alabama. But any kind of lame duck status. I mean, she's not going to show up Tuesday night with like sunglasses and a beach umbrella, and a boat drink, is she?
no, I think people know who she is, and that she generally well liked in the legislature, and I think by the general public.
Mm.
As far as her initiatives, that I did think of one that we had not mentioned, is that's the West Alabama corridor, that four
Oh yeah.
lane highway from Mobile to Tuscaloosa, which has
Hmm.
been really important to her. And but now that's one area where she has some friction with the legislature.
Right.
They recently sold about 700 million in bonds for that, and some of the legislators aren't happy about the way that's going. They're not opposed to the project, but they don't think the state should be committing that much money to it at one time and going in debt for it. Um, and they just think there's higher priorities because the truck, based on volume of traffic on I
Hmm.
65 and so forth.
Yeah, and the lieutenant governor, Will Ainsworth, has been very vocal about that in a different place from the governor, which sort of illustrates the difference between governor, lieutenant governor in the state and the president, the vice president. They weren't on the same ticket. And Ainsworth, he's been very vocal about wanting more of I-65 six lane. I don't know how many trips to the coast he takes in a year. It sounds like maybe a few. I know I take a few, so that's been a peculiar little I guess minor riff there.
Yeah, maybe a little more than a minor riff, and that could be something that comes up in the State of the State speech. Although I'm not sure where the bonds have already been sold. I'm not sure where the legislature is going to be involved. That's one of the great powers the governor has in Alabama, is road building. It's
Hmm.
pretty much completely at her discretion. And although the Department of Transportation has a planning bureau and all that, but I guess one of the big criticisms of the West Alabama corridor that she's championed has been that there's no federal money being used, and most of the big highway projects you have an 80% federal match.
Right.
And I'm not well schooled on why this one is different, but for some reason this is going to be all state money, and that's what some of the legislators are arguing, that this is not being
Mhm.
handled the right way.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, you may not have the governor's agenda in your hand, but I know you have an idea of some of the things that we can expect to see for sure over the next couple months. Can you just kind of go through a few of them for us while we got you?
Sure. Well, they always have to pass the budgets, and a
Mhm.
big issue with the education budget is there's been a big increase in the cost of the public education employees' health insurance. It's going up like $380 million next year. It's about a 33% increase, and so that's a big chunk of change they've got to cover, and I think they're pretty confident they can do that. There's a trust fund that's going to be used for part of that. But anyway, that's a big expense, and probably a concern, for future years if that trend continues. And then along with that, they want to be able to afford to have a pay raise for teachers and education employees as well as
Mhm.
state employees. So they'll be debating whether they can afford that. Um, it is an
Okay.
election year, and all 140 legislative seats are on the ballot. So
Mm.
that's a consideration. And conventional wisdom is they generally stay away from controversial subjects like the lottery during an election year. And there's
Mhm.
no indication there's going to be a serious push for a lottery bill this year.
Mhm. It's always a question we ask. Everybody always wants to know about the lottery. I know people at home are just laughing, going, "Yeah, whatever."
Probably so, with good reason.
And you talked about education this year as well.
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, the state's performance on the national standardized tests have really improved the last couple of years, and the legislature had passed this bill called the Literacy Act to focus on reading in the real early grades, and the Numeracy Act to focus on math, and those appear to be working. So
Mm.
they're going to be continuing to support those. I heard the House Minority Leader Anthony Daniels said he would like to see something similar for science.
Okay.
So we'll see if that goes anywhere. Um,
That sounds like something Democrats and Republicans might work together on.
yeah, and they generally have worked together on this education stuff.
Mhm.
Um,
There was something on tech schools in your story, I recall. They
yeah,
were all
House Speaker Ledbetter said that the state does not have enough career tech centers in high schools, uh, especially in rural areas. So they want to
mm,
put more money into career tech in high schools. For kids that might not necessarily want to go to college but want to learn a career skill in high school. Um,
yeah, and fit some of those jobs we've got in the state.
Correct. And there'll be some of the culture war bills that come up. Some of them come up every year and maybe take several years to pass. There's the bill that some people call the "Don't Say Gay" bill, where
Mm,
you don't have classroom discussion or instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity.
right.
Well, that's the law now, and through the fifth grade. But there's a bill that would say carry that all the way through the 12th grade. And I don't know how
Okay.
much of that classroom discussion or instruction goes on now, but that's a bill that will come up and you know probably get considered. There's also one that surprisingly did not pass last year was to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. So,
I was going to ask about that. I couldn't remember whether that Alabama had done that or not.
yeah, it passed the House, but got caught up in the Senate. There was some kind of a snag there, but I would think they'll pass that this year.
I always wonder it was something that was just a presidential order. If on the national level, if we've sort of as we have more and more of these orders that happen on the first day of every president's term, um, how many of them we're just going to see go back and forth. So if the state starts renaming things based on what President Trump does, the next guy just rename everything?
Right.
Sort of like what we Mount Denali, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, there's a couple of other oddities I saw. I wrote down. There's a bill to prohibit uh, references to the West Bank in Israel that
Oh
it
yeah.
should be called Judea and Samaria. That one I'd never heard of that. I didn't know the term West Bank was controversial, but apparently it is for some. And a big issue that we probably should mention is the state's online sales tax. The
Hmm.
state passed about 10 years ago this for people buying things online. You pay the vendor is supposed to collect 8% flat sales tax. It's called a use tax, um, as opposed to the traditional sales tax that you pay. And that's worked well and raised hundreds of millions of dollars for the state. But now some of the cities are saying, no, we're getting shortchanged because if we were collecting traditional sales taxes on this, we'd be getting a lot more money because the sales
Right.
tax can be like 10%. So
Yeah.
that's a bitter fight, and it's in court now. The counties are on one side wanting to defend the tax as is and protect it because they say it's a real important source of revenue, which it is. And the
Hmm.
cities are saying, well, the law has changed. We need to update our tax structure to capture all this money uh, through our traditional sales tax.
Right.
So that's a big fight in the legislature.
Okay. Yeah, always have to remember that everybody gets their cut of the sales tax, which is also affects the food sales tax, which is why the sales tax on food didn't go to 3% or 4% right off the bat. Well, we're at 2% now for the state. Is that right for the
That's right,
food?
2%. Yeah.
Okay, and that'll, I guess that'll come down maybe. Well, we have to see how the budget is this year, right?
Yeah. I don't haven't heard that that's going to come down anymore anytime soon.
Okay.
So,
Okay. All right. Well, anything, I won't keep you forever. I know we're getting into a busy spot, and you have to make a press conference in a few minutes. Is there anything else we absolutely need to know before you head out?
um, no, just please read our coverage on al.com, and I appreciate you having me on, Ike. And if there's something that comes up, I mean, I'm sure there'll be something come up. It comes up that's a surprise, so be glad to come on and talk about it again. Uh,
Oh yeah, come in here and do this anytime. We love to have you. Um, uh, yeah, I'm gonna link to Mike's some of Mike's stuff in show notes. Certainly the politics page, and then directly to Mike, who covers the legislature and Montgomery. So. Um, Mike, loved having you. Thanks for coming on. Thanks everybody out there for listening to us. Have a great weekend. We're going to be back on Monday. The session starts on Tuesday. Until then, y'all come by and see us anytime you can on the internet at al.com.